Bro, I need to get it together. All right, I'm about to set y'all up. Last time I talked to y'all, I was like literally in a little mood, in a little tis, whatever you want to call it. But baby, baby. I'm about to have my eyes closed. It's gonna be a bittersweet moment. But I need to actually like get it together because I'm presenting today. I'm presenting about social media and anxiety. And it's interesting because I took a whole break from social media, but about to do my last class. We're about to wrap this thing up. Having class from the comfort of my bed. All right, let's get her done. So, what? That's crazy, Johnny. Okay. On the first, I think it's like the first module, and it'll say finals week sign up. Any questions before we get started for tonight? Okay. We should have some time at the end after we wrap up with our discussion for questions. So we will go ahead and get started. Like throughout that whole entire session, like nothing felt textbooky. It didn't seem too analytical or critical. It was a great way to terminate a session. I can tell that you built rapport with her, but also because you two appear to have the same culture, I felt like that connection was there, although there was a level of professionalism as well. I appreciated in the termination when you were asking her, you was like, okay, so based off the things that we've done, which I think is a great way to end the termination session, if this happens again, do you see yourself coming back, whether it's to me or somebody else? And I think that was a really, really good thing. Jasmine, anything you would have done differently? Maybe not, because I did this before. Talk about the clients that didn't make it, because it may or may not take the focus off of them. Bringing somebody in, even though you didn't say a lot about that client, but like bringing it in like, well, you know, this person, that's probably the only thing I would have did differently. So the reason why, like I said before, I chose this is because further along in the PowerPoint, you will see why it's very, very important for our profession to be interested in some of the use that social media has to do with our clients. And I want to say specifically to like the adolescent teen age. It can still happen with adults as well, but I feel like it'll be very important for us to be knowledgeable and know a little bit about that. According to the World Health Organization, 3.6%, or about 264 million individuals worldwide having an anxiety disorder. The last time I looked this up, I feel like it's grown, but that's still pretty high. Additionally, 4.6% of females and 2.6% of males globally are affected by anxiety. So that's just generalized anxiety disorder, but people can also suffer from social anxiety disorder or social phobia. So a fear of negative judgment from others in social situations or public embarrassment. It includes a range of feelings such as stage fright, a fear of intimacy, and also is around humiliation and rejection. So this disorder, social anxiety disorder, can cause people to avoid public situations, human contact. Individuals on the other end of the spectrum have opinions that differ from those. People have also stated that social media, excuse me, has been one of the most positive influences in their life. We're seeing some of a correlation, but not really much of a correlation, which is why I kind of feel like it's kind of like it could happen, it cannot happen. It all depends on how you want to look at it. I felt like that was long. Sorry. You're good. Any questions or comments on this topic of social media and its relation to mental health disorders? Yeah.
Yes. One, that presentation was pretty because mine was so blown.
Well, thank you.
So during COVID, so I don't have social media. I mentioned it earlier. And during COVID, I did use one for my business. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And I did connect with people. But then, like, I ain't gonna say once it was over. Like, toward the end of 2020, I was like, okay, you have to come off this. Right. Because, like, the world started, you know, normalizing. And it was like, I just felt drawn into it. That's why I never wanted to get into it. And I was just thinking, like, what about the people that never came out since COVID? Anyway, just your whole presentation about how it impacts your mental health. I'm like, so was it good? Or
And
So,
that's the thing. And the more
but
research
little
I
bit of
did,
both.
I was like, is this good? I mean, I took the limitations part out because I was like, this is too long. You only have but so much time. But that was the issue. Like, it was no clear cut research to say whether it was good or whether it was bad. That's why I felt like it was
Yeah.
important to put those little pros and cons in there, because you're right. It did help you build a community when you were in a period of isolation. But coming out of that period of isolation, now what?
I think I'm glad that you mentioned the pros and cons, because there are pros and cons to social media. I think all of this is, we're all in a social experiment. Like, literally, we are. If you don't know what Meta, which is Facebook and Twitter and all these companies do, like, I know y'all been on Instagram, you're like, wait a minute, I don't follow this account. What if I show in my feed? Like, all of these things impact our behaviors and what we do. So it definitely has an impact on mental health. I think, people put on masks and facades, and so the things that people are like actually aspiring to may not even be real. And they really got depressed, like suicidal depressed, over what they were seeing online. And then think about the bullying aspect of it. Twitter's about to be free speech, but free speech doesn't mean hate speech. But obviously, that's people think it means. So I think there's a lot of impact on mental health. You mentioned the self-help sites, kind of like the mental health communities. I think they're great, but I also think people are somewhat using that as a substitute for therapy, which is the negative side to it. But understanding, a lot of people don't have access to mental health providers, so this may be all that they get. So again, there's kind of like this give and take, pros and cons to social media. But yeah, good presentation. I'm glad that you highlighted those pros and cons.
Thank you.
Just talking about wrapping up, so just really reflecting on your time, like in this internship process, like, starting out, looking at yourself as a baby clinician. You'll still be a baby clinician when you graduate, but you were like really like, when you started to now, what were your areas of growth? So I want you all to spend maybe like a minute or two, more so focused on that first question about like, what did you learn about yourself throughout this process? And then we'll come back in and share out and close out for the evening. But I really want us to have this conversation about growth. Like, where did you see yourself here when you started out? Like, what were your biggest areas of growth throughout this entire process?
That's a good question.
We can jump right in. If you're still thinking, take your time.
And trusting that, like, I don't need to, like, fix someone in the session. Like, that's not reality-based. And so, like, looking for maybe little growth or something, I don't know, to kind of, like, see, okay, we're making progress. I'm not wasting this person's time, but also not being, like, delusional about any expectations, I think.
Awesome.
And so I think that counseling is like a natural relationship that just happens when two people just have a conversation. And it's in those moments, it's almost like, to me, it feels like a yogi moment or something off those like samurai movies, right? Where they're like silent and all of a sudden the answer hits them.